Welcome to Zero Knowledge. I'm your host, Anna Rose. In this podcast, we will be exploring the latest in zero-knowledge research and the decentralized web, as well as new paradigms that promise to change the way we interact and transact online. This week, I dive into the Polygon ecosystem with Mihailo, one of the co-founders of this popular EVM-compatible scaling solution. We learn about the Polygon history, the product suite they now maintain, and their push into the ZK space. We talk about the interaction within the Polygon ZK ecosystem, chat about their connection to the Ethereum ecosystem, as well as what's next for the project. Now, before we start in, if you're looking to jump into the ZK space professionally, I want to remind you to head over to the ZK jobs board. There you can find job posts from some of the top teams working in ZK. I also want to encourage teams who are hiring to use this jobs board to find your next hire. We have teams like Polygon Hermes, EF, and Protocol Labs there already. Be sure to post your job on the ZK job board for the entire ZK community to see. We'll add the link to this in the show notes. I also want to make sure that the upcoming ZK Hack Mini is on your radar. Last fall, we did a 7-week event with puzzle hacking and ZK tool workshops. Now we bring it back for a mini version of this event set to last 2 weeks. It starts on March 1st. So if you missed the first edition or were at the first edition and want to continue with the puzzle hacking / workshop fun, be sure to sign up for the newsletter. And you can already sign up for our first event over on Hopin. We'll add the link to this in the show notes. Now I'll let Tanya, the podcast producer, share a little bit more about this week's sponsor.
Today's episode is sponsored by Least Authority. Least Authority has been making advancements in the zero-knowledge space since 2013. This year, they will release the Moon Math Manual, a beginner's guide to ZK snarks. The manual is designed to enable an audience with only minimal cryptography and programming experience to implement complex, real-world ZK building blocks. Least Authority has also published a white paper on zero-knowledge access passes, otherwise known as ZCAPs. This privacy-enhancing technology enables users to access services without revealing personal information to the service provider. They are implementing ZCAPs in private storage, their soon-to-be-released cloud storage service. To learn more about Least Authority and the upcoming Moon Math Manual, visit leastauthority.com/moonmathmanual. That's leastauthority.com/moonmathmanual. So thank you again, Least Authority. Now here's Anna's interview with Mihailo from Polygon.
So today I'm chatting with Mihailo, the co-founder of Polygon. Welcome to the show, Mihailo.
Thanks, Anna, for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on and talk about Polygon because Polygon is a project that's moved very heavily into the ZK space recently. And you'd have to be completely not paying attention not to see Polygon's kind of presence in the ZK ecosystem. So I really want to find out, though, like, what was Polygon before all this? Where does Polygon start for you?
So ever since 2017, I guess I have been actively involved. That's when I officially left, I guess, Web2 world and the startup I was working on back in the days, and officially full-time joined crypto and started exploring Ethereum. I was drawn to this great idea of programmable blockchains and Web3 and this grand promise of this internet of value that we are trying to build, and permissionless global financial system for everyone, and all these transformative concepts, I guess, of governance, changing the way we as humans collaborate, disrupting companies, disrupting governments, all of that. I went full-blown down the rabbit hole, I guess, and it became inevitable. I couldn't resist anymore, simply. So I just joined the industry full-time and focused, I guess, on Ethereum fully. And it was already pretty evident that Ethereum layer 1 cannot scale, and that's a feature, not a bug, actually. And scaling solutions were slowly being introduced. Plasma was the thing back in the days, and I guess I got pretty heavily or actively involved with the plasma research and all plasma flavors that we have seen back in the days. And that's when I got drawn into this whole scaling debate and research and field in general. In parallel with that, I think I got to understand, I still have that understanding or belief, at least, that we will see and we will live in some sort of a multi-chain world. So these multi-chain concepts or frameworks also kind of inspired me, or I got very interested in them. And it was after some time that I understood that actually these two concepts, Ethereum scaling and multi-chain systems as such, are actually just two sides of the same coin, basically. And that's when it kind of clicked for me. And that idea of Polygon was born soon after that. Maybe I guess it was sometime in 2018. I cannot really recall exactly. And that's when I actually started exploring all these solutions. I guess I got to understand that, as I said, we have this grand promise of Web3. And I strongly believe Ethereum is by far the best chance to actually build this Web3. And it's like something that really inspires me every morning when I wake up or when I go to bed. This grand promise again of this network of value, this permissionless financial system that will allow anyone to participate in global economy. For me, if you don't mind, maybe I'm maybe being too broad here, but I think it's maybe interesting to just answer your question in as many details as possible.
Sure.
So
no, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For me, that opportunity with internet, basically, with establishing this internet infrastructure and internet becoming mainstream, we have established this network of information. And that network of information democratized access to knowledge globally. And that's something very, very powerful to me. So before the internet, access to knowledge wasn't democratized, wasn't globally available. It was kind of reserved for people who were either in some geographic locations like developed countries, or had certain background or enough money to attend colleges, etc. Internet democratized all of that. So with the internet now, anyone in any remote village in Africa or whatever, Latin America or anywhere, basically can access more or less this global knowledge base and can learn English, learn to code, basically acquire skills in globally, I guess, democratized way. What is missing now in this setup that we have is that now these people still in many regions cannot monetize that knowledge. It's still not possible to actually monetize or benefit or improve their lives with that knowledge that they can acquire. I've spent some time living in Africa, and I've seen there, for example, in Tanzania, it is normal for people not to have IDs, it was pretty strange to me. But people don't even have
IDs, like identification cards.
Yeah, there's no concept. Like half of the country basically doesn't have IDs, not to mention bank accounts. So in such setup, it's really hard. How do you actually monetize your knowledge or any skill that you might have? With Web3, that kind of changes everything. And that's one of the things that really inspired me to actually join this whole effort is basically like that missing component. Okay, so people can now actually acquire skills globally. And now with Web3, it's like so simple. Boom, you just create your wallet and you can actually get paid as an engineer or whatever, or content creator or whatever, really. And it's something that I'm really, really excited about. And that's what kind of keeps me going. That's one component. Second component is this, as I mentioned, this concept of collaboration, and blockchain says human coordination machine, I guess, or computer. And basically the potential we have with all these concepts now to disrupt companies, to disrupt communities in general, potentially even governments, or concept of nation states, ideally speaking, of course, long term. But these two, I guess, major concepts are very, very transformative and can fundamentally change the society we live in. And that, again, that is really inspiring for me. Now, going back to engineering and technology, we are still in a very early phase. We are building some infrastructure for 1 billion plus people, or let's say ideally 2 billion, 3 billion people. Currently, the architecture we have is far from enough, is far from mature enough, or robust enough, or scalable enough, decentralized enough to support that scale. So I guess I came to understand whilst researching these scaling solutions and in general infrastructure that it is indeed very early stage of development, innovation, and everything. So I kind of came to understand that at this point, it might be the best to actually just facilitate innovation. There is this famous misquote, let 1,000 flowers bloom. So I came to understand that there should be an unopinionated platform, unopinionated project that will support innovation at this point without betting on any specific technology. So we have seen multiple projects, coming and going, some of them even dying, betting or trying to build some specific technology. And at this point where we're in this early phase of innovation, it's highly risky because a lot of these projects will not make it, actually. We're still brainstorming, experimenting with technology. So that's how the idea of Polygon was born, as an unopinionated platform, basically, that supports all major scaling approaches, infrastructure solutions. And that's kind of the origin of Polygon. I spent some time tinkering about it, and I set some kind of high-level concepts and design, maybe some vision. And that's how the idea of Polygon, or first, I guess, concept was born. And that was already, I guess, 2019. Yeah.
So this is a question I have for you, is when I'm trying to describe Polygon, I don't know if I can put it in the camp of like an L2 or a side chain. Like, is it a rollup? Is it bridged to the main chain? How do you conceptualize what it is today? Like the Polygon that people may have used if they're using OpenSea and using kind of the Polygon chain as the chain option. What is that right now?
Yes, great question. So Polygon POS chain is our widely adopted solution that 100 plus million of user wallets are already using. And that is just one chain in the Polygon's multi-chain. So we actually aim to transform Ethereum into a multi-chain system with a multitude of chains of different architectures, basically. Polygon POS is only one chain in that ecosystem that we envision, and it is special only in a way that it is highly adopted at the moment. Apart from that, its technology is also quite interesting in a sense that it is some sort of hybrid of layer 2 and a side chain. It has, I guess, combines components of both. We can go technical, of course, if we want on this podcast, but generally it's interesting because it combines these two concepts. And that's what we want to encourage, and we're constantly encouraging at Polygon. We see Ethereum scaling as a wide spectrum. For us, anything that scales Ethereum technology, Ethereum stack, is also scaling Ethereum. So on one extreme, on let's say left side of that spectrum, we have kind of fully independent, almost these sidechain solutions or enterprise solutions that are using EVM. And for us, they are definitely adding to the network effects of Ethereum and scaling Ethereum technology, scaling the idea at the end of the day of Ethereum. And that's one kind of extreme, or one side of the far left side of the spectrum. On the right side of the spectrum, we have these full-blown layer 2s, how we normally call them. So these are chains that derive to a large extent security from Ethereum. And in between, we again have multiple solutions like Avail, for example. So with layer 2s, we normally assume that both data availability, so-called, we can explain the concept if needed. I'm not sure if all the listeners are aware of the concept.
We've covered this a number of times on the show, but I think it's great to redefine it for folks. Data availability, what is it?
Sure. So basically, when you build these scaling solutions, you have two major, I guess, challenges. One is how do you ensure security or correctness of transactions? And the second one is how you ensure data availability. So correctness or security is obvious one, right? You want all the transactions in that scaling solution or in that sidechain or whatever it is, or rollup. Rollups are also separate chains. That's important to understand. They just are secured by Ethereum. So in that particular solution, you want all the transactions to be correct, right? And you ensure that in ZK rollups via ZK proofs or so-called validity proofs. In optimistic rollups, you ensure that by fraud proofs. So this is how you kind of ensure security, and you derive security from Ethereum in some way. Separate concept, or the second concept, is data availability. So let's say you have a scaling solution that has one operator that is kind of running that solution. And you say, okay, we have ZK proofs of transaction correctness. So this operator cannot do anything malicious, right? They cannot submit malicious transactions. We have ZK proofs that are proving them, so they cannot do anything malicious. But what if that operator decides to shut down its server and withholds all the data of all users. So users cannot actually exit. If they want to go back to layer one, they need this data available so they can actually submit proof of transaction inclusion and they can actually exit to layer one.
So data availability is the proof that data is available, that one could get it if they needed it. Would you say that's it?
Yes, for any purpose, either for exiting to layer one or to challenging what operator has done. For these two, I guess, major purposes, you need data to be available. This transaction data, you simply need it. Otherwise, some bad things can happen. You either cannot ensure security fully because maybe operator, in case of optimistic rollups, for example, so operator might be submitting these checkpoints to Ethereum periodically, but you cannot challenge them even though they did something malicious because you cannot see the transactions themselves. You need to see them. You need to understand that something malicious happened there and then create a fraud proof based on that. So that's one thing. Or if you want to exit, you also need data to be available. So for these two things, you just need all the transactions in that sidechain, in that specific solution or that layer two to be available. And these are, I guess, two major challenges that we are facing when we are designing these solutions.
L2s and other sidechains.
We generally prefer term scaling solutions, I guess. And we see Polygon as a scaling platform. We don't really want, because layer two we see full-blown layer twos is only one part of that scaling spectrum. That's how we see it. And as I said, now in the middle, you have either hybrid solutions like Polygon POS chain that combined, I guess, pieces of both worlds of, let's say, sidechains and layer two, or you have layer twos which don't have data availability on Ethereum. So as I said, layer twos normally derive both security from Ethereum and have data availability on Ethereum. You have solutions, for example, called Validiums, which are deriving security from Ethereum, but data is stored somewhere off-chain. It's not
a committee.
It can be on a committee. It can be on a permissionless network of storage nodes, whatever, or it can be on specific solutions like the one that we are working on in Polygon called Polygon Avail. So Polygon Avail is a specific data availability focused chain. So it's basically a permissionless solution for storing and sequencing data. It's specifically being built for that. It's one of the projects that we're experimenting at Polygon. But what I wanted to say basically is we consider and take into account and try to work on this whole spectrum of solutions because we see use cases for practically each one of them and we see interest because one of the things we're focused really, we have two major focuses now at Polygon. One is innovation and pushing the frontier of innovation, staying on the bleeding edge of technology always. And the second one is adoption. And we kind of already became known for adoption and our, I guess, relentless, some would say, work on that front. And we really want to actually, like, for us, technology that no one uses is unfortunately, it's worthless, no matter how much work you put into it. So adoption is really important for us. And we like to talk with the projects and end users, and that's something we, I guess, kind of specialized in. And we're really, the reason I'm saying this is not to brag, it's because we are really seeing use cases for all these solutions across the spectrum, basically. Enterprises want one types of solution in general. Web3 natives want different types of solutions, etc. So it's really, I think this spectrum is here kind of to stay, and pretty much all the solutions from the spectrum have their place, I guess, in the ecosystem. So I guess that's how I see it.
I want to kind of go back a bit to the early days because I had some questions. You started to describe that you were looking around at things like Plasma. Would you say like the early iteration of Polygon was like Plasma? Was it a Plasma type chain? And maybe what is Plasma even? I mean, we covered it a long time ago on the show, but I could use a refresher. Yeah.
So I guess two major things we should mention there. One, to cover briefly, Plasma is a layer 2 solution based on fraud proofs. So it's very similar practically, or essentially, it is very similar to optimistic rollups. Optimistic rollups are basically, I guess, the next iteration of Plasma. And they differ from Plasma mainly in the way they approach data availability. So Plasma generally stores the notion of Plasma, the idea of Plasma is to store data somewhere online. That's where offline, sorry. That's when the actually data availability as a concept and as a challenge was actually identified during these early Plasma days. That's when it became obvious, okay, we actually need the data. That's when the data availability problem kind of was identified in the first place. And optimistic rollups are actually normally solving that by storing data on Ethereum itself. And that's practically the major difference between optimistic rollups and Plasma. I guess there's no other major difference.
So were you guys Plasma originally?
And yeah, that's the also important thing to understand. So as I said, I kind of formalized this general vision, I guess, and design and concept of Polygon. And I was about to start Polygon as a standalone project. But generally, as a person, I'm generally collaborative, and I like the spirit of collaboration that we see in Ethereum. It's really one of the things that are that I find very cool and I'm kind of excited about. So I generally spoke briefly with a couple of projects that have significant amount, I guess, of tech overlap. So these were, I guess, Ethereum scaling projects, all of them. And there was significant overlap, as I said, between my vision of Polygon and what these teams were trying to build or achieve. And one of the projects was Matic. That's how it used to be called back in the days.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I started talking, of course, I knew all these projects, these founders from before, and this is a small community. We all know each other and all of that. And I just started briefly talking with them. And as we started talking, things really started coming together really nicely. And we really kind of clicked, and we very quickly decided to start working together. And, starting work together with someone and becoming co-founder with someone is not a small decision. It's something you don't really decide lightly. But really all the kind of checkpoints with these guys got ticked, and they were very committed to what they were doing. Treasury was managed very well. They were really proactive. They already had very similar vision for, let's say, the future of Matic. And a bunch of things kind of came together nicely. And we just said, okay, let's do this thing together. And that's how Polygon was then officially introduced as our collaboration, actually. So I didn't start it as a sole founder. We started it together. And that turned out to be, I would say, a really good decision, and because of this all exponential growth that we have all witnessed in the last year, and that we are very excited and humbled by. So to just answer your question, basically they were working, what they had at the time was, I believe, the first or one of the first, one doesn't even matter, Plasma implementation that were all in production, live in production and being ready to use. And they also had this Polygon POS chain. And that's where we, I guess, also learned one important lesson. So we had this POS chain that was up and running in production, and it was fully EVM compatible. And we had Plasma at the same time that was also production ready, available for developers to use, but still 95% of projects, we were completely not biased. When we were discussing with teams and onboarding them, we were actually recommending Plasma as a layer 2 solution because it derives security from Ethereum more than the POS chain to a certain extent. But developers actually turned out that this EVM compatibility is really important thing, and developers are actually willing to accept certain trade-offs, maybe even in terms of kind of security, or at least theoretical security, to have this convenience of Ethereum development environment. So that's something we kind of learned, and then we accepted that, okay, whatever we build moving forward, we really need to try to make it EVM compatible. That is kind of our now, one of our design principles for all the solutions that we're building at. So Polygon POS is fully EVM compatible, Polygon Edge is fully EVM compatible, as well as our ZK solutions, Polygon Hermes, Polygon Midan, Polygon Zero, that we're all very happy to support. So yeah, all of them pretty much have EVM compatibility on the roadmap.
That was actually one of my big questions was it sort of a fork of GETH the POS chain? And what is the POS in the POS chain? Proof of stake?
Stands for proof of stake. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the hybrid of, as I said, the side chain that is operated by a proof of stake set of validators, which is now, I don't even track the prices, to be honest, but I don't know what is today's price, but let's say the total amount of stake in terms of US dollars is probably north of $3 billion, I guess maybe even more. I'm really not sure. So it's pretty significant amount in terms of this economic security that this proof of stake provides. Mm-hmm. And it's a decentralized validator set, proof of stake based. And we also, on top of that, and what is very interesting, it actually lives on Ethereum. So in that sense, for example, if Ethereum, hypothetically, if Ethereum stops working for whatever reason, POS chain also will stop working because the whole validator logic and everything and the bridge itself, everything lives on Ethereum. So we're kind of like an execution, I guess, extension of Ethereum, maybe in some way.
Wow. I have some questions now about how this relates to like the ETH2 split, because I'm sure you're paying attention very closely to this. Like this is super interesting. So your POS, you have your own validator set, you have your own locked security from like basically people who've staked their tokens to validators, I'm assuming, on the network.
Yes.
And yet there's a bridge. So there's a bridge from Polygon POS chain to Ethereum. And you're saying that there's something in the logic that tracks it, but is it sort of like time codes, block height? Like what kind of thing, what does it track?
In terms of tracking, the chain only monitors events on Ethereum, mainly on the bridging side or validator logic side. So basically, the whole chain is aware of these two, I guess, groups of contracts. So bridging contract and validator contract. So the chain is aware what is the active validator set, what are the weights of every specific validator. And in terms of the bridge, the chain itself is aware of any message that is requested to be bridged to the Polygon POS chain or vice versa from the POS chain to the Ethereum layer 1. And the messages that are supported there are generally arbitrary. So you can even have not only simple token transfers, but you can have some, for example, you have applications like Curve that have deployments on both Ethereum layer 1 and on Polygon POS chain. And then you have some governance decisions, for example, on layer 1, and the governance DAO makes a decision and they're able to execute the decision on the POS side via the bridge in a basically trustless manner without any intermediary, because we support this arbitrary message passing. That's, I guess, one additional convenient feature that this chain supports. But again, just going back to the major point, POS chain is just one concept, one specific implementation on that spectrum of Ethereum scaling solutions that we see. And we were just, I guess, fortunate that chain was up and running, it was fully EVM compatible, and it was available today. Like we were last year, we were kind of in that situation where Ethereum gas fees were going crazy. People kind of started leaving the ecosystem to some maybe other layer 1 chains, which are maybe not offering the best trade-offs in terms of decentralization and whatnot. Of course, I never like to talk negatively about any other project, of course, but I'm just saying that I guess it's a fact, kind of. And I think Polygon was there ready to kind of meet that huge demand that we were seeing in the market. So the POS chain was very convenient in that regard. But we really now are heads down working around the clock really on more advanced, these bleeding edge solutions that will, we really believe, push the frontier of innovation. One of them is, for example, Polygon Hermes. We can go, if you want to cover more ZK, I guess, based efforts. I would, of course, really love
Definitely.
that. And yeah, we're really excited about it.
I want to do a rundown of all of the different kind of the product suite. I don't know if you'd call it that, but all the different sort of chains and ideas. POS chain is this incredibly popular chain and used a lot, and it's very, very large. And like what you're saying sort of is like you were there at the right time, right place. You had the EVM compatibility that maybe other teams didn't realize was so incredibly valuable to be able to redeploy a Solidity contract.
We learned that hard way.
You learned it the hard way. I do have one last question about it, which is like, is it GETH or is it something else because it's POS? Like, what's it based on?
So actually, essentially POS is indeed the fork of GETH, at least the execution layer. When it comes to consensus, we are actually using Cosmos, i.e. Tendermint, for consensus and for this proof of stake overlay. So that's how it works for now. Currently, we're working on version 3 of the POS chain that should introduce some, I guess, fundamental improvements of how the chain operates and simplify the architecture a little bit, because currently it operates in 2 layers. One is called Heimdall and the other one is called Bohr. But we don't really, I guess, need to go into that right now. But it is indeed based on GETH, at least for now.
Cool. So you mentioned that you have Tendermint and sort of something borrowed from the Cosmos ecosystem. At the same time, I see kind of in everything you're saying, you're extremely focused on Ethereum. Have you considered bridging to Cosmos? Do you have any connection to that ecosystem, or do you see yourselves as entirely pointed at Ethereum?
We are fully focused on Ethereum, like 100%. But we, of course, support and encourage all other projects that are adding value to the industry in general. And Cosmos is certainly, I would say, one of them. And they have made significant contributions to the industry so far already. So I really love the team, and as well as some other teams in the industry. So wherever there is a meaningful way to collaborate, we are open for collaboration. But when it comes to our focus, we are definitely focused on Ethereum 100%, and we are not exploring generally ourselves integrations with other layer ones and whatnot. But again, Polygon is a fully permissionless network and platform, and we have indeed already bridges that deploy to some other layer ones, but it's by third parties. It's done by third parties. Like there is, I think now probably even, I would say even 10 bridges from Polygon POS to the Ethereum itself.
Wow.
Only one of them
just to Ethereum. Oh, that's so funny.
Only one of them is kind of, you can say official. It's not even official. Yes, we have built it, but it's public infrastructure, of course. It's not our property or anything. But they are third parties. I know at least 6 bridges that are currently operational between Polygon POS and Ethereum, and as well some of them to other chains like BSC or whatever, or Solana or whatever of these layer ones are out there. But these bridges are done by third parties because it's of course fully permissionless platform, and anyone can do pretty much whatever they want.
So I think it's a really good time now in the episode to do the kind of rundown of all of the different products, because you've mentioned them a few times, like you've sort of hinted at them, the different types of rollups, the different types of scaling solutions that you're working on. And maybe we can start with one you already mentioned, which I don't know if you'd exactly put it in the category, but this Avail, data availability. It's a standalone rollup? What would you call it? Like a chain?
Yeah, it's a chain. It's similar to... I'm not sure if I should talk about other projects. I guess why not?
I would say it sounds similar to Celestia.
Yes, exactly. exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Celestia is also a great project. They are tackling the same basically challenge, but we are again a little bit more focused. We are actually fully focused on Ethereum. They are more involved with Cosmos, as far as I can notice nowadays. Which is, I guess, one difference. We're Ethereum focused. And the second major difference is when it comes to technology. Basically, I think Celestia, to the best of my knowledge, still, I haven't been following their work really closely lately. But I think that the way you ensure data availability is using fraud proofs on their side. And we use something called Kate commitments and some interesting cryptographic and mathematical concepts to actually ensure this data availability. And it's more in line with the, I guess, data availability shards that are being currently researched and developed within the Ethereum 2 as part of Ethereum 2 project. So it's basically the same line of design that we follow at Polygon Avail. And we want to the idea with Avail is to maybe contribute in some way and push that whole effort forward a little bit faster. We would like to collaborate more closely. We already have contacts and interactions with the Ethereum 2.0 team that is working on the sharding itself. And we would maybe in a way, everything we do at Polygon, we kind of do with the idea to also give back to Ethereum, because pretty much all this adoption is we have to thank Ethereum for it. Okay, there was a lot of hard work on our side and all of that. That's all fine. But the way Ethereum community kind of embraced us and understood that we are actually adding value to Ethereum instead of just trying to extract value and all of that. And everything happened really nicely, and we're very happy about that. And we're always looking for ways to give value back to Ethereum. And Avail also with it, we would like to again contribute to this Ethereum 2.0 data sharding research and effort in general. But yeah, Polygon Avail is a data availability focused solution. It is also a chain itself, like Celestia. It is one of the chains in this Polygon ecosystem, this Polygon multi-chain ecosystem that we envision, and it serves this specific purpose. It should do it really well. It sequences data and it stores data, and I guess it's specific in a way that very little overhead is required to actually ensure that the data is available. So you can actually have a light client of that blockchain, which can do some small data sampling occasionally throughout time. And with very little overhead, basically, for the light client itself, you can stay assured and have higher guarantees, mathematical guarantees, that the data is available. And that is kind of the nice thing about it. So yeah, it is not a smart contract chain. You cannot deploy apps on it or anything like that. It literally stores data in a sequenced way. And you can easily ensure that the data is available by doing this sampling that is kind of, introduces low overhead.
Do you also picture this being sort of the base chain of another ecosystem of rollups? Or do you see it more like holding data, but making data available for rollups on Ethereum?
Yes, that's exactly the purpose.
The second one?
It shouldn't be, yes.
Okay,
so it shouldn't be the base layer. The base layer, you always want as a base layer something that is highly secure, and that is normally Ethereum layer 1. So that should be the base layer for rollups, we believe, in general. But a rollup storing data on Ethereum layer 1 is simply not scalable. It is cheap, it is expensive, consumes a lot of gas, and it significantly limits, or I would say even dramatically limits the throughput of these solutions. So we need to look for ways to store data basically off chain. And Avail is just one effort, one of the approaches that we are considering experimenting with currently. And we believe it might be an interesting option to actually keep the data for these rollups in moving forward. We also have other approaches and other efforts. As I said, like we really now just want to facilitate innovation at Polygon. We're still in this early phase. Let's just help as many great ideas, try to facilitate them, put some funds, put some resources, put our, I guess, maybe even network effects or whatever, any sort of help that we can provide. And let's see how they play out in the market. Not all of them will survive, of course, but it's, I think, very exciting and meaningful to have this innovation hub that we consider Polygon to be.
What about, you had sort of mentioned this too, what is Polygon Edge? What is that?
Polygon Edge is another solution in our suite that actually enables anyone to build their own chains within this multi-chain Ethereum ecosystem.
Is it like an SDK kind of?
Sort of, yeah. It actually, Polygon Edge was called Polygon SDK originally. We recently rebranding it to Polygon Edge because we got some feedback that people normally thought for some reason that it's some sort of developer toolkit for the POS chain itself. And
to build dApps on top of it or something.
Yes, there was some confusion there constantly. So we kind of discussed it briefly and decided to rebrand to Polygon Edge.
Got it.
And it's in some way equivalent to Cosmos SDK. I guess a lot of people have heard about it. Or
Substrate. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So it's kind of our alternative. Also, again, you can guess fully Ethereum focused. And we currently support these enterprises like standalone PON enterprise CVM chains. We support side chains. That's what we have for now. We recently introduced proof of stake overlay for that consensus. So it's basically a modular framework to build Ethereum compatible chains, as we call them. Moving forward, we want to introduce more consensus algorithms. We want to introduce layer 2 support so people can even build their own layer 2s using Polygon Edge. So that's going to be pretty cool. And
Neat.
A lot of other cool stuff in the roadmap. And basically Polygon Edge, as you said before, POS chain is a fork of GETH. Polygon Edge is kind of implementation of the whole Ethereum stack. That's what we use as a foundation for Polygon Edge, but built from scratch, which is very interesting. So that was, I guess, one of the very few efforts, at least in recent years, to rebuild the whole Ethereum stack. So normally people forget, which is, it's convenient. GETH is beta tested and all of that. It's been in production for years. But there are, I guess, two at least major downsides to that. One is GETH is, of course, very monolithic code base. There's a lot of interdependencies everywhere. You cannot change the things easily. We really wanted to have something that is modular. We wanted modular consensus. We wanted modular runtime. So you can actually, with Polygon Edge, you can kind of plug in. You don't have to use EVM necessarily. You can plug in something like Awesome. You can maybe plug in you can plug in something like OVM, which is a virtual machine for optimistic rollups and stuff like that. We are even now experimenting internally. As a matter of fact, we are right now starting a proof of concept. We're going to use the Polygon Edge framework. And instead of EVM, we're going to use ZKVM that is currently being built by Polygon Hermes team.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how that system runs together, and maybe we can significantly speed up the whole development time and maybe solve some of the relatively small challenges that we're seeing on the Polygon Hermes side. So we really wanted something modular, which GETH definitely is not. So, and the second thing
sounds so hard to do this, by the way, because you're reverse engineering GETH in a way?
Not really reverse engineering. The architecture is known, but just building it from scratch is pretty challenging. It's a pretty complex stack, So and we wanted it to be modular. One thing. The second thing is GETH is a code base that has been built for years and evolved over time, and it kind of becomes a little bit messy. Some parts of the code base, maybe networking especially, and things like that. There are always parts in these code bases that no one dares to touch.
They don't know what it's going to do.
Just don't touch that part, basically. So we just wanted to rewrite the whole stack in a more, organized, well-structured manner. And I think we have achieved that. It was really challenging, actually. And now we're working with multiple partners. We're going to have several very big announcements on that side, both on the enterprise side, and some big names are already using it. I cannot share more details right now, but it's going to be public very soon. We're seeing it kind of in testing environment running very successfully now with any major issues. So I think we maybe have even made it. That's Polygon Edge, basically like a modular framework for building all sorts of Ethereum compatible chains. Basically, ideally, almost everything from that Ethereum scaling spectrum that we mentioned.
Do you have any other products or like in your suite, maybe some other scaling solutions that aren't ZK? Because I also want to soon move over to the ZK side of things. But is there anything else maybe on the non-ZK that we should know about?
Yeah, we are, of course, supportive of all the solutions, our meaningful efforts to scale Ethereum. We are still actively experimenting with optimistic or fraud-proof based systems, but we don't have formal efforts there. I'm not saying we won't have them, but currently we don't have anything that is formalized and official from that side. So I guess we can dive into the ZK part of the...
Yay! Okay. So I had an interview with Jordy and David about... When was this? It was last year, spring. And at the time, I think it was like at the very moment that they were actually like joining Polygon. And we even had to record a little add-on at the end because the announcement happened between the recording and the actual release of the show. And it wasn't actually that much about Hermes. That was about ZKEVM. So we had gone into the initial plans of ZKEVM, but Hermes itself was also sort of brought over to the Polygon world. And I'm wondering, like, it has its own way of writing itself to chain and creating the snarks and creating the proofs. But do you see that, like, has it evolved since being incorporated into Polygon, or does it still run the same way?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that. So Hermes, when we started talking to them, first, let me just give a very quick kind of preface. So as I said, we support all the solutions, all scaling solutions from the spectrum, of course. But having explored extensively all the solutions from the spectrum, we are a little bit biased toward ZK-based solutions. We believe taking everything into account, ZK-based solutions probably offer the best set of trade-offs and can actually be the I don't want to say the holy grail, but can actually be the technology that can help us mitigate almost all these major challenges that we have, including privacy, which is very important, by the way, and it's coming one day. Now we're all super occupied with scaling, and that's like the pressing issue. But once we manage to actually scale, privacy is going to become a very hot and important topic, because currently we're just basically our wallets and everything is open to everyone in the world to see and monitor our transactions, and that's not really viable. And I guess ZK-based solutions are very well positioned to mitigate, I guess, all these major challenges that we're facing right now as an industry, I guess. And we kind of formalized, I guess, that bias by publishing our ZK thesis sometime last year, I guess maybe in June, something like that, where we actually explained what I said now. And we committed $1 billion from our treasury to support ZK-based efforts, be it R&D or projects or acquisitions or talent acquiring, grants, anything basically that can help the industry move forward. And that's how that's when we started actually establishing this Polygon ZK-based or ZK team, if you want, or ecosystem, or call it whatever. Yeah. And Hermes is the first project that we officially introduced, and we are super excited to work with the team. The team is spearheaded by Jordi, who's a kind of living legend of Ethereum, and they already had
a living legend of ZK.
Yes. Jordi and the team, they built the only, for now, decentralized ZK rollup. This is very interesting. So this is, even today, the only decentralized ZK rollup. It doesn't have a centralized operator, centralized sequencer. Yes. All the rollups out there, actually, not only ZK, but ZK and Optimistic, all of them have a centralized operator, all of them apart from Hermes. So Hermes by design has the centralized operator and some interesting model for picking the operator based on auctions and whatnot. And it is live on mainnet, but it is limited to mainly payment use cases, token transfers and things like that. So that brings us again back to this Ethereum compatibility thing and how needed it is basically for any scaling solution to be widely adopted. And Hermes team understood that, and we started talking, and we really kind of clicked on multiple levels. And we really like that they started work on ZKVM. We recognize, of course, the importance of that. After some period of negotiations, we decided to join hands. And yes, so far, that proved to be so far a very good decision, I believe. And we're heading towards testnet. I'm really happy to say that. I think we can even mark the date today, but let's say in 3 months for today. It's always tricky to give this.
You're putting pressure on Jordi and the team right now, huh?
Yes, but I spent a couple of days now with Jordi and the team. We spent a couple of days together now. Went over everything that has been worked on lately, and we're of course constantly in touch very closely. We are all very confident to say that in 3 months we will have a testnet of ZKVM, and that's going to be, to the best of my knowledge, again, the first implementation of Ethereum virtual machine in a ZK-friendly manner. And we're, of course, super excited about it. And we started this effort of establishing Polygon's ZK team or ecosystem, if you will. And one of the teams that we had a lot of respect for was definitely Hermes, and we started discussing with them. And after a series of discussions, we identified a lot of synergies, mainly the upcoming Hermes 2.0, how we still call it kind of internally. And to answer your question, basically, what's new on the Hermes side? So yes, they have already built this decentralized rollup, which is live on the mainnet now, but it supports generally only payments, token transfers, and things like that. And as we previously said, like we learned the hard way that EVM compatibility is very important, I guess. So it was great to recognize synergies there, and they're also starting this ZKVM effort, and now we are well on our way to actually deliver that. So along the way, we agreed how we can start join hands, start working together, and basically Polygon Hermes was announced in that, I guess, interesting acquisition merger, basically, which is, to the best of my knowledge, the first example of one network absorbing another one, I guess. Because Polygon token absorbed kind of Hermes token, and that was also kind of a pretty cool, I guess, experiment. But going back to the technology itself, Hermes, the whole team is now fully focused on delivering ZKVM, which is going to be, we believe, to the best of our knowledge, the first basically EVM, full EVM compatible ZK rollup out there. We are very optimistic about delivering, and I think I can share basically that in 3 months from now, from this day today, we can expect actually ZKVM on the testnet, which is really, really cool. And we're always careful with these timelines, of course, but I'm constantly in touch with Hermes team. We're constantly updating each other. We're working together, and we're very confident that within 3 months from now, we can have this on the testnet, which is going to be very, very exciting. In parallel, we're starting some auxiliary efforts there in terms of mainly hardware acceleration, which is going to be almost necessary, I guess, at least in these first iterations of ZK-based solutions. So I'm not sure if many of your listeners know, but hardware acceleration is basically something that can significantly improve the throughput itself or computational efficiency of these ZK proofs and related operations. So we're also working there very actively to establish a strong team on that side and ideally further accelerate the ZKVM once we have it out there on the mainnet, ideally within 6 months or so. That's our target for now.
Mm-hmm. Like I said just before, there is an entire episode all about the ZK EVM. If someone wants to go a little deeper into what that looks like, I'll add the link to that in the show notes as well, if someone wants to hear it.
Excellent. Yeah, highly recommend it. It's a great episode and very interesting thing that Jordi came up with these micro VMs and in general, very, very interesting technology.
Totally. Although interestingly, after that aired, I did learn about 2 other ZK EVM projects. There's definitely something brewing in the EF around this. Yeah. And so there is like quite a few. I mean, I think the idea of that, like as an EVM kind of secured by a ZK rollup or a zero knowledge proof somewhere along the stack. I think in the case of the ZK EVM that Jordi does, there's actually 2. I think it's a really exciting, challenging kind of goal. I think a lot of people are going to want to do it. I'm excited to see how different people approach it, actually.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're, of course, very collaborative, and Jordi is indeed. And we're working with EF people, mainly with Barry. Barry is leading that effort to the best of my knowledge, again, from the EF side. And we are having Jordi and him are also collaborating very well. And there's another project, I think, called Scroll that I think something like, if I'm not mistaken, they're trying to re-implement also, or to implement ZKVM, I think based mainly on this EF-based effort that Barry is heading. That's my understanding, at least. I think even doing something in that regard. I'm not sure. Yeah. They were experimenting also with something like that.
Who were?
Yeah, Loopring.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Oh, that's cool.
I heard that. I think I've heard that. Not quite sure, but I think I've heard that they're also working with EF in some way. Which is super cool for us, of course. Like, let's all push the frontier of innovation together.
Totally. What else in the ZK stack do we have to look forward to or can already play with? I'm thinking maybe we can hear a bit about like Nightfall.
Yeah, let's briefly cover, I guess, the 3 remaining efforts on our side. So as I said, Polygon Hermes, at least the upcoming version, currently is a payment-focused rollup. Upcoming ZK EVM is full-blown EVM ZK secured implementation. We're very excited about it, as I already explained. We have Polygon Midan, Polygon Zero, and Polygon Nightfall left to cover. So Polygon Nightfall is unique in this ZK solutions ecosystem in a sense that, at least in Polygon, because it's the only one that is privacy focused. It is privacy first solution. It's not focused on scalability, it's focused on privacy.
Yeah.
So it basically was started by the great team from the EY, basically led by Paul Brody, who is one, I guess, of the more prominent people from the enterprise ecosystem in our industry. And they started this first of all, they built this Nightfall library that is providing privacy features for mainly for enterprises on Ethereum mainnet. They realize it is very kind of gas heavy, like all, I guess, ZK operations on mainnet. And they started exploring these soft chain solutions and having a kind of a separate chain or a rollup, whatever. And we were in touch already and working on some things together. And we said, okay, let's do it together. And that's how Polygon Nightfall was born and announced. And basically it's again, interesting hybrid of optimistic rollup and ZK rollup. And again, going back to what I said in the beginning, this ecosystem is very broad, very interesting, and we can see all sorts of hybrids there, all sorts of solutions. So I don't like be hell-bent, on this is layer 2 or this is not layer 2. Let's just allow this whole ecosystem to kind of thrive and develop, and let's see what we can come up with. So it sort of combines components of optimistic rollups and ZK tech to actually provide this privacy-first solution. So you can even kind of think of it as a Tornado. A lot of people know Tornado from the Ethereum mainnet, and you can kind of think of it to a certain extent as Tornado, but more scalable, more affordable, because it's on its own scaling solution, not on the Ethereum mainnet. So it is generally focused on enterprises, but we really have a clear understanding with the EY team that is going to be a part of the public infrastructure and available to anyone. And we already have this public interface being built right now and things like that. So it's pretty interesting. We're also working on adding additional features, programmability, exploring the next version of the solution itself. Yeah, we're making very good progress, I think, towards the mainnet. It should hit the mainnet really soon, I believe. It's already on testnet. So, yeah.
The next one I know you already mentioned was Midan, and we actually did a full episode on Midan as well. The thing is, I love doing this with you. I almost feel like we should have done this product suite episode before, because there's so many projects in the suite that I want to actually have on for full episodes to explore what they're doing. So if anyone wants to hear about Midan being a Stark focused solution, there is a full episode on that. But I think it's worth mentioning, at least briefly, what it is and how that fits in.
Absolutely, yes. And I think it's fine that we're doing this now. At least now we have all these solutions, at least publicly out there. And when we announced Polygon, it was still mainly about POS chain. And we really, really trying to communicate that idea of Polygon being an unopinionated multi-chain platform or solution with multiple solutions basically supported and in the works. But there's still a lot of narratives in this industry and a lot of
Totally.
Say empty promises. So it was for us kind of also important to really put something out there, to really prove actually that we're not just talking, that we're actually working and building actual tech and putting it there. So now we have all these efforts public and very much in the works. So
I want to mention something for our audience that we've been trying to do this interview for at least 4 or 5 months, I think, right? So
I feel I am really embarrassed.
We kept getting pushed off because it was like, something's coming.
Yeah, because I told you that, really, for us, it was really important to kind of prove ourselves to the community and to actually show that we have the capacity, that we have formal efforts, capable expert teams working on them, just to basically prove that it's what we're saying, actually, we're also putting to work.
Totally.
Yes. So now we can discuss each of these solutions separately and openly.
Totally.
Yeah.
So Midan.
Really sorry for the delay. And we're constantly super busy. Yeah. So thank you for understanding.
No problem. No problem. I don't mean to bring you on and then shame you or something. I'm just happy that we got to do it
already, but I deserve it. Okay.
Anyway, tell us a little bit about Midan. I think it's important.
Okay, cool. Of course. Yeah. Midan is a Stark based effort. It's a scaling focused effort. It's a ZK rollup, Stark only, exclusively based on Stark. It is, in that regard, you can think of it as somewhat comparable to, I guess, what Starkware is doing, because it's also Stark only based scaling solution. But the difference is that Midan is fully open source. We really believe in Polygon. We really believe in open source technology, and everything, absolutely everything we build and that we will ever build on Polygon, in the Polygon ecosystem, will be open source. We want to follow this ethos of Web3, and everything that Midan is working is fully open source, of course. And there are then some deeper differences when it comes to actual architecture. So both projects have their respectable virtual machines, which are Stark-based. Midan has Midan VM. Stark has Stark VM, I believe. And the architectures are kind of different. And whoever wants to understand the differences, I guess better is to listen to the Midan episode itself, where Bobin explains that in more detail. I can maybe cover it briefly, or it's not required right now. But there are some architectural differences. And yes, and another thing that we are focusing on very much, I guess, is that Ethereum compatibility, as I said. So the Midan VM has its own native assembly, but we are actually actively thinking in line of compiling Solidity to that assembly, and that is already set as one of the design goals for the VM itself and the assembly alongside with it. And that's something also very important, I guess, to mention when it comes to this solution. The solution is spearheaded by Bobin. Bobin is a prominent ZK researcher. He was ZK lead at Facebook's Novi for quite some time. He built Winterfell. Winterfell is a very interesting decentralized Stark prover that was built in as part of Facebook Novi, and Bobin left Novi and started basically Midan with us. Midan is kind of successor of Distaff VM. Distaff was Bobin's project. That's how I actually met Bobin. We met on ETH Research. Bobin published Distaff as his first effort to build Stark-based virtual machines some time ago. I think maybe 2.5 years ago, I guess, roughly. And that's how we met, basically, on ETH Research, and started talking. And I really liked his ideas, and I kind of invited him, started talking to him. And eventually, we also decided to join hands. And that's how Polygon Midan was introduced. And we might go now to Polygon Zero if you want.
Sure.
To cover.
Although I want to keep the Polygon Zero brief, because actually in the next week or two, I have a schedule to actually have a full episode to look into what that is. Another team I'd been trying to have on for a while is Mir. It was a request from the audience. And they also were like, just wait. And now finally it was announced that there had been something happening between your two organizations, and it all made sense. But yeah, maybe just briefly, what is Polygon Zero? And maybe you can give people a bit of a taste for what we're going to talk about next time when I bring them on for a full episode. Okay,
cool. Maybe you can tell me how secretive I should be now.
Just be vague.
Okay, deal. So as some of your listeners might already know, recently we announced this Mir acquisition. Mir is a little less known ZK startup. In my humble opinion, one of the most underappreciated ZK teams out there. They have a very, very strong team with some very cool technology in works and already out there. The main piece of the technology, for now at least, is Plonky 2. So Plonky 2 is the world's fastest recursive ZK prover out there. It is a significant breakthrough in terms of engineering on that front. And it is, I guess, at least 2 orders of magnitude. Again, it's not up to me to compare. And Brendan and Daniel, the founders of Polygon Zero, which used to be Mir, can cover it in more depth in the episode itself. But basically, it is by far the fastest, if you will, ZK scaling technology available today. And the whole team has done a great deal of the optimizations, and they built this really great piece of technology. And we are super excited to have them also as part of the Polygon family and working on Polygon Zero. So Polygon Zero is also ZK Rollup, in a sense similar to Polygon Midan, but the difference is it is based on Plonky 2 as the core piece of that infrastructure, and the whole virtual machine will be based on that technology. And in a similar manner, basically, we want to see Solidity compatibility by transpiling from Solidity to the native assembly of the virtual machine that Zero is building. So these things are kind of similar, but the technology and the team are different. So the backstory is that I also know Daniel, one of the two founders of Polygon Zero, also from ETH Research. So back in the days, we also had some. Yeah, that was.
And when you
longer.
say ETH Research, you mean the forum, the board where people post things.
Sorry, I assume people know it, but I don't know why I'm assuming that.
I mean, most people probably do know it. The ones who are listening.
It's a popular Ethereum research forums where I don't know, like us Ethereum geeks are hanging out and getting to know each other, I guess. And that's where I met also Daniel. We kind of became friends, and also during our effort to establish this ZK team or ecosystem, we decided to join hands, and also super excited and humbled to have these guys on board. Super strong team, and excited to see what will come from their side. And just to give, just to kind of wrap it up now, a lot of people are asking us, okay, you have 3 scaling focused ZK efforts. Why are you doing that? Like, what's wrong with you? Basically, we keep hearing that, and again, I keep going to my original point or premise that this is very early phase of innovation still, and we want that, as I said, to let 1,000 flowers bloom. Let's support multiple efforts. Let's encourage innovation. And what we're very, very happy about is that these teams are working together really, really well. So there's very close collaboration between these teams and great energy. We have regular weekly calls. We have, of course, asynchronous communication on kind of a daily level. Teams are updating each other, collaborating with each other. We even kind of set the incentives in a sense that we have, of course, financial arrangements with each of these teams. And some of the parts of the arrangement is tied to the actual adoption of the solution. And we set incentives in a way that if only one of the teams kind of make it in terms of adoption bonuses are being unlocked for all the teams.
Cool.
So they're kind of already incentivized to work together. There's no incentive to work against each other. But that being said, these people are already great guys and highly ethical, and they don't even need these incentives, to be honest. But even the incentives are, I guess, kind of there. And it's like really amazing. If you remember, Anna, I invited you. Maybe you can come one time to these weekly calls that we have with our ZK teams. So the energy, just to attend this one call and hear and feel the energy there, it's like super exciting. And every time on this call, every week, basically, I'm being humbled over and over again, and really proud that, I can call myself a co-founder of a project that has such a great team. It's like, it's really amazing. Yeah. And just to kind of finalize my thought. So this is the current situation. And these projects are indeed separate now, and each of the teams are pursuing their dreams. And we want to enable and facilitate that at Polygon. But none of the teams or us as Polygon co-founders are excluding the possibility that some of these projects will converge somewhere along the way.
Ooh, this
maybe
is exciting.
we will see someone join hands, maybe not. We really don't want to put any sort of pressure or influence any sort of decisions there. We just want to be a facilitator. We just want to be that positive force in the ecosystem, not some big evil, project that now has a lot of money in the treasury and goes left and right and buys projects and tells them what to do, whatever.
I can actually already imagine one part. So ZKVM, which uses something from Stark technology and Snarks. I would love to see if there's any kind of collaborative points there. I can already picture like Bobbin and Jordy potentially sharing some info there.
Absolutely. We already have now scheduled in real life IRL, basically meeting in Denver now, as a matter of fact. So all the teams are gathering there. We will all be there. We will spend several days again working together, brainstorming. As I said, it's really a great great atmosphere among all these teams. Yeah, so we're super happy about that, and we'll see how that will actually. What will be the epilogue, I guess, of that collaboration? We just want to let it happen organically, basically.
Cool. I want to mention something because, we're talking a lot about this group and how they're sort of the ideas are being formed and they're sharing and all of this. We actually, Mihailo, like Polygon and myself, actually have a fun collaboration coming up around the ZK Hack. So the ZK Hack, Polygon is actually the building partner for the ZK Hack Mini, which starts on March 1st. I think I have it actually in the ad of this episode as well. And Polygon as the building partner, we're actually going to get to hear from a lot of these projects and the workshops that we're hosting. Every week we're doing a workshop. It will actually be a bunch of these Polygon teams. So I'm very, very excited to also share some of this even further with the audience. So anyone who would love to get a little taste of this should definitely check it out.
Yeah, super exciting. Please check it out. And thanks, Anna, for inviting us to collaborate.
Totally. So we had Circom at ZK Hack 1, but we didn't have anything from the Polygon universe, really. And so we thought it would make sense for us to feature you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks again for inviting us. We need to be, we are very much aware that we need to be more out there. Things are happening very fast on our side. And we want to be technology first. We want to focus on great tech and facilitate processes on that side. And then we want to, of course, step up the communication side of things and marketing and basically speak with the community more and engage ourselves with efforts like the one you mentioned now. That's was really important. But for us, it was more important to establish the processes, establish roadmaps, establish teams, allocate resources, etc. All of that happened basically in the past 4 months or so for all these 4 teams. So it was quite a run, yeah. But I guess we will be out there more now.
I want to ask you a little bit of like, what's next? And maybe another even more pointed question. Like everything right now is very, very focused on being EVM compatible. But do you even see like an evolution of what that means ever? Or would you stick purely to what exists now? Because I know there's other kind of EVM compatible chains that are thinking of like adding things that EVM, like the current EVM on Ethereum doesn't, I love saying that, the current Ethereum virtual machine on Ethereum. Anyway, the current EVM, like the known Ethereum L1 EVM doesn't have. So like actually adding new features. Is this anything you're ever thinking of?
Mm-hmm, of course. So to answer your first question, what is next? So I believe for this year, our goal is mainly kind of consolidation. So Polygon in the last year grew exponentially. And of course, when that happens, you have these growing pains and your internal organization is, I don't want to say a little bit chaotic, but it is at times. It's just kind of, I guess, unavoidable when you grow exponentially. And we're kind of trying to establish this organization to become more streamlined and everything, again, without centralizing the project too much. So it's a delicate kind of balance that we will try to really establish this year. That's important for us. And just to further facilitate and continue with these efforts that we have. We don't foresee introducing too many efforts on the new efforts on the tech side. I think we covered all of our major interests pretty well for now. We just need to focus on the existing products and help them build as good and as fast as possible. On the adoption side and business side, I think we are very focused on that. My co-founder Sandeep is leading that side of things, and he's doing that extremely well. We're focusing on these mega, I guess, niches, NFTs, games, and DeFi and enterprise division that is currently being established pretty much. And we have also some great projects there lined up. So that's about it for us, I guess. And
I love that. Like, that's about it. That's all. Only these like.
Yeah, there's another, I guess, major effort is this upcoming token redesign. It's something that we really need to do, and we're working on it already. That effort started, I guess, like 1 month ago. Slowly.
What does that mean? What is a token redesign? Like, are you talking the mechanics or the?
Yeah. So Polygon was as I said in the beginning of the episode, so at some point I decided to join hands with Matic, and our token is still called Matic.
Yeah.
And it's kind of maybe the last, I guess, maybe legacy of Matic itself. And it was designed to power the architecture that was introduced back in the days with Matic. Polygon is a kind of new paradigm of this multi-chain system built around or on top of Ethereum. And the token that we envision should power and secure this whole multi-chain paradigm.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to be a mandatory, like it's really important to say, we don't want to force anyone. We just want this token to actually enable security. We don't want it to be a mandatory token that everyone will have to buy, use, or stake or anything. It should stay under the hood for majority of the users, but we see a lot of potential in introducing some changes to the token design itself, the mechanics, and how it is utilized within this ecosystem. And that's where we're probably going to change the ticker also. So for us, the announcement of Polygon, it wasn't just a mere rebranding for us. It was the announcement of fundamental shift in vision and some new chapter for the project itself. So also that's why we decided, okay, let's just leave the token for now as it is. And once we actually change the ticker to something Polygon, probably like Pol or whatever, it doesn't even matter for now. We're going to decide on it later. When that happens, we want that to be also a sign that we have put a lot of thinking into this token actually, and how it brings value, how it adds value to the ecosystem, how it is utilized across the ecosystem. And when we actually have a clarity or clear vision on that, that's when that also event is going to happen. So I would like that to happen this year. It will take quite a lot of work. I'm not sure we already have a lot on our plate. I hope we can do it this year.
Would you have to redesign this somehow to like work across all of the different networks as well? Or would it still live on the POS chain?
No, absolutely. It's going to be used in Hermes, in Midan, in Zero. It's just, we have very clear kind of principles already or high level and core ideas. It just needs a lot of analytics, simulations to become kind of confident about ideas that we have.
Is there any influence? Is there any other token influence? Like I'm trying to pick, is there any other token that actually natively lives on multiple chains? Can it? Like it's always wrapped versions as far as I know.
Yeah, it can be wrapped version. It can live on Ethereum, but it facilitates or secures these other chains and these other projects. There are multiple ways how it can be utilized, but maybe mainly to provide security or to pick operators or validators or introduce rewards. Because when you're bootstrapping, for example, some new network, let's say we ideally want to have Hermes 2.0 and ZKVM as a decentralized rollup. We wouldn't want to have it centralized in the long run. So you want to bootstrap that network. So ideally, if you have a token that's providing rewards in a similar manner like other POS chains or Polygon POS chain, that should help bootstrap this network of operators compared to when you don't have any token there. So you have, I guess, to rely only on transaction fees, and then it becomes this chicken and egg problem, typical for any marketplace. You don't have enough fees, so you don't have enough validators, and then you enter that, vicious circle at some point, or things like that. So definitely we have, I would say, very interesting ideas. We just need to formalize them more, test them, do a bunch of simulations. We want to involve some prominent people from the industry who are experts in the field. I don't want to, I guess, name names now, but pretty known, pretty prominent in the industry to help us with that effort. And yeah, I guess these two things are main focuses mainly for us in this year, apart from all the work that we're already doing, like these products and then the adoption side.
I have to go back to the question that I first asked because I realized we forgot to get back to it, which is the EVM itself. Like do you actually imagine in a ZK EVM, does the EVM eventually evolve too?
Yes, I wanted to get back to that now. So EVM is kind of de facto the standard right now in the industry. And we just, for the sake of adoption, we are acknowledging that and we're acting accordingly. Okay. So, but we're not being EVM maximalists or in
Okay.
any way. We want technology to move forward. We never want to consider any technology perfect. Every technology is far from perfect, of course, especially in these early phases. And we are open for all the alternatives and all alternative approaches. And that's where, for example, these alternative virtual machines, like the one being built by Polygon Zero, for example, or Polygon Midan, are interesting in a sense that these virtual machines, you can think of them as or their instruction set as a superset of EVM instruction set. And that practically means that it is possible to for these virtual machines to be Ethereum compatible or Solidity compatible, but they have more potential or wider potential. So they can actually be targeted by some other programming languages. For example, Bobin, who's spearheading Polygon Midan, is really interested recently in Move, the programming language built at Facebook's Novi. And you can also have deterministic subsets of Rust or whatever, any other popular mainstream programming language targeting these virtual machines. So I don't think we're going to have EVM, in use forever. Maybe it will happen, but I doubt. Technology evolves, technology moves forward, especially, again, like for the 10th time, we are still in very early phase with Web3 in general. But I think if we replace EVM one day, it's going to be by some sort of soft fork, as we say in blockchain. It's not like something that will completely disrupt EVM. It's going to be rather something that is kind of compatible with EVM, for example, like Polygon Zero, but it has broader instruction set or can support other high-level languages or something like that. And then you can kind of gradually replace EVM. That's the most likely scenario we see for replacing EVM, I guess, in the long run.
Cool. Mihailo, I want to say a big thank you for coming on the show and sharing with us this amazing kind of product suite, all of the different solutions that you've been building or investing in or kind of gathering together under the Polygon umbrella. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you so much, Anna, for inviting me. It was really a pleasure, and I hope your listeners will like the episode. And I hope this was somewhat clear. I know we have a lot of going on the product side, and it might not be very easy to digest initially. But I guess what is important is that we at least have clarity, or we believe we have clarity and vision. What are these components used for in the long term? And it's definitely going to be exciting year or years to come.
It's very ambitious, and I obviously wish you luck. And actually, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, we do have one of those projects, Polygon Zero, who will be on the show either next week or the week after, so very soon, so we can continue to explore even more of this ecosystem. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Anna.
I want to say a big thank you to the podcast producer, Tanya, the podcast editor, Henrik, and to our listeners. Thanks for listening.